Namaste. This is yours truly, the King Priest. I bring you greetings from the Progressive King Priest Consciousness Learning Center here in Pampa, Texas, where our philosophy is the science of the mind is the salvation of the soul. Now, as we sit and watch the American dream ciphered right from under us, as we watch America, as we watch our America slowly ebb down the tubes, we wonder and we contemplate what's next. I will address this issue or these issues today in today's 16th video entitled A Prison for the Mind. The world pulled down over our eyes. Now, please go to my YouTube channel, Apostle King Priest Woodard, Science of the Mind Lectures. Please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications of more ensuing videos. Please do this for me. I only lack a few more subscriptions to get my URL. I need your help. Now let's get into the lecture for today. A prison for the mind. As we reclaim our sovereignty as the emerging gods of the universe, the ancestry of the OG, the original gods, the original human beings to inhabit this planet, we must understand some things and what we must do. And if we don't understand, we don't know what to do. But through the science of the mind, I want to teach you step by step the process of reclaiming your sovereignty, my sovereignty, our sovereignty, the bequeath of our intentional creator. We are the crown creation of an intentional creator. As I said in yesterday's video, everything begins with a thought. Everything is a mental creation. The universe is a mental creation. The suns, the moons, and the stars, you and I are mental creation. Everything begins with a thought. The all is mind. God is mind. The universe is mind. The mind is all there is. Now, when we think a thought, especially while we're psychologically grounded in a social construct. Let me say that again. We are psychologically grounded in a social construct, an illusion, if you please, in a simulation of life, if you please. So within the confines of a mental prison, when we think a thought or feel an emotion, are you listening to me? When we think a thought or feel an emotion in our heart, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. As we think a thought and we feel a feeling in our heart, a chemical reaction is turned on in the brain, in the cerebral cortex, that releases chemicals that we call neurotransmitters. When we think a thought or experience a feeling from the heart, a process is turned on releasing chemicals and signals. This is how immaterial thought, energy is thought, vibration, frequency. This is how energy, invisible energy, real or imagined, becomes matter. It becomes reality as our personal experience. This is the power of the mind. See, the mind is powerful. The mind is the master power that molds and makes. And man is the mind, and evermore he takes the tools of his thoughts and feelings and creates what he wills, bringing forth 1,000 joys or 1,000 ills. Man thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. And his environment is but his looking glass. As we think and as we feel, we are creating our reality. Our reality creates our personality, and our personality creates our reality. As we think or feel, energy is transmuted, perpetually transmuted into matter, into physical objectivity. Physical objectivity as this glass, it began with a thought. This goblet began with a thought. And in process, culminated in a goblet, a beautiful goblet. The creation of the mind. Are you listening? Follow me closely today. The chemical signals that are released in our cerebral cortex, left and right brain, causes our body, our sacred human temple, to feel what we are thinking. As the brain releases chemicals, your brain is a pharmaceutical. Your brain is a chemist, the most advanced chemist in this world, in this universe. It releases chemicals that allows the body to feel what you're thinking. And as we notice what we're feeling and how we're feeling some kind of way, the feeling influences more thinking of the same caliber. And thus more chemicals are released. Are you listening? To validate the feeling in the body, what we're thinking in the mind. Are you listening to me? As a result, thoughts are the language of the brain. Thoughts are the language of the cerebral cortex, left and right brain, that are connected by a fiber of tissue called the corpus callosum, that causes the left and right brain to work in conjunction one with the other. Are you listening to me? Are you following me? Now, if thoughts are the language of the brain, the cerebral cortex, and feelings are the language of the body, through the science of the mind, we will understand today how we can break free of the prison for our mind and go behind the veil that has been pulled over our eyes. Follow me closely. Follow me closely, if you will. Now, case in point, if we have a fearful thought, chemicals are released in our brain that causes the body to feel fearful. Are you listening? The emotion influences more fearful stress and initiate survival modality, thus invoking more thoughts of the same, thus invoking more chemicals, solidifying our ruling state of consciousness we call fear. This keeps us trapped in a prison for our minds. And we live our lives day to day in the past, never being able to move on to the future. This is why many of us cannot keep our New Year's resolutions. We are addicted to the past. We live in the memories and the hurts and the feelings of the past. Thus, we cannot envision the future. And thus, we are locked in a prison for our minds. And the world is pulled down over our eyes. Social scientists understand this. This is why we're in a social construct. We're in a matrix. This whole scenario that we're seeing that's tearing down America's foundation, COVID-19, the wearing of masks, the separation of people from people. And I've told you in other videos that it's very necessary for living organisms to correlate with one another. But we've been forced to stay away from each other, to wear a mask, to stay at home, stay indoors. We are in a prison for our minds. And they keep pumping it out to us in social media and in local news outlets that it's going to be even more chronic as the ensuing days, weeks, and months and years manifest. I tell you, we are trapped in the prison for the mind. The world has been pulled down over our eyes, and we cannot break free because of our psychological impairment. Social scientists have impaired our thinking. We live in constant survival mode, fight or flight. We don't know what to do. Fight or flight. Some people are literally, under these circumstances, losing their freaking minds. People don't even want to live anymore. They've lost the joy of living, the joy of life, the joy of loved ones. We are locked in a prison for our minds. The world has been pulled down over our eyes. We can't break free because we're psychologically grounded. Did you hear me say we're grounded? From head to toe, from toe to head. And we have created a vortex of negative electromagnetic energy that's attracting more of the same. If you don't believe me, I'm going to tell you in the next few moments how we're attracting more of this nonsense that we're experiencing in the breaking down of America. This is ludicrous. This is asinine. Never in the history of this planet have you seen such debauchery happen at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in the White House. Never in the history of this world. But bear in mind, nothing is acted out without a purpose. Where there is fire, there is smoke. But they're trying to get you to think that there's nothing to it. As if you're smoking a blunt. It's not real, but the smoke is real. I tell you, where there's smoke, there's got to be fire. When we incessantly, constantly think the same thoughts and feel the same feelings, We are wiring and firing and rewiring our minds for the self-same episode. Change cannot happen when the mind is being constantly wired and rewired for drama and for debauchery. There's no way you can move on to the future. You're stagnant. You're static. This is the position that the social scientists and the social construct want you in, so that you can be chattel property. You can be controlled. You can be victims of mind control through subliminal messages on the television, on the social media. But if you're going to regain your sovereignty, you're going to have to awaken yourself from this slumber, from this sleep, from this nightmare. You're incessantly creating the same things over and over and over and over. I've told you in earlier videos, if you change your mind, change your perception, you change the way your brain works. And your brain will cause your behavior to change for your greater good as the emerging God in this universe. You are creating through thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same being. You're creating a pattern, a paradigm, a grid, if you please, for your demise and for your own destruction. And for the life of you, you can't think why you can't make ends meet. You are grounded for failure. You are locked in a prison for your mind. You're in a matrix, a simulation of what we call life. Now, if thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, let's look at this from a day-to-day basis. Let's look at it. When we go to bed at night, we are stressed from today's news outlets. We are stressed from Facebook. We are stressed from Instagram. We're stressed from Twitter, what we've heard and what we've seen and what we've experienced. And the brain release has created feelings, horrible feelings, erratic feelings. And we don't know which way to turn. And we go to bed in survival mode. Some are having nightmares. Some are having irrational dreams. And yet, we wake up early in the morning, get up on the same side of bed, looking for any iota of familiarity. Because when we have familiarity, we feel like we have some control. We look for some familiarity and we check our Facebook. We check our Instagram. We check our Twitter. We check the news only to get the same information and data from yesterday, thus solidifying our thought processes and thus releasing more chemicals, more neurotransmitters that will enable the body to feel the pressures and the emotions of the external world. Are you listening to me? We are in a madhouse, mentally and psychologically. And as the day goes on, they continue to pump propaganda to us, saying that it's going to be even more chronic than yesterday and the day before yesterday. And we just hobble along trying to make sense of it all. And as I said on yesterday, pray if you must. I'm a strong believer in prayer. I'm a strong believer in faith. But as my dear mother, my ancestor, my angel, Celestine Woodard told me, some things that are occurring in life, singing and praying is not going to stop it. Hear me say that. Singing and praying is not going to turn this thing around. It hadn't done it in 400 years. We are locked in a prison for our minds. Yet, there are millions upon millions awakening in the midst of this atmospheric change. As I said in earlier videos, things will never be the same anymore, or what you call or what you thought was normal. Because there is no normality in life. The only normality is change. Change is certain. Did you hear me? Because everything is constantly moving, constantly vibrating, constantly sending out frequencies, and frequencies carries information and data. Everything is being born, growing, maturing, and then when it is matured, it begins to decline, it begins to die. Nothing is certain in this world but change. Now, what we're going to have to do is to get a hold of ourselves. And as the sacred text says in the King James narrative, Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of that we call God, that you present your bodies, your sacred temples, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this matrix, this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. And then you can break free of this prison for your minds. And you can look behind the veil that's been pulled down over your eyes. This is the Apostle King Priest bringing you Grand Rising from the Progressive King Priest Consciousness Learning Center. Now, please go to this YouTube channel of mine, Apostle King Priest Woodard, Science of the Mind Lectures. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you can get further notifications of lectures of this same caliber. And I say to you as I sign off, Namaste. You in your divinity and I in mine, we are one and the same. There is no separatism. We arrive and derive from the same source. There's not but one source. There's not but one creative power. Did you hear me? There is no two or three. Namaste.